Oh, thank you very much for that introduction, Sequoia, and it's wonderful to see so many people here tonight. This meeting comes at a very important time in international politics. Unfortunately, the Biden administration is continuing the US's Cold War against China that was started by Donald Trump. And the British government is assuming its role as a junior partner to the US in this Cold War. The stakes involved in this international struggle are gigantic. We must be clear that the US actions against China are aggressive, dangerous, and a genuine threat to world peace. We are facing multiple threats of hot wars, rising racism, and economic damage. And all of these threats are against the interests of the overwhelming majority of humanity, including the Chinese people, the British people, and people in the United States. This is very clear on the economic front. The US trade war against China is designed to hold back China's economic development, but it has also proved to be an act of economic self-harm and made the people in the US poorer. Any country, including Britain, that follows Washington's Cold War approach will suffer economic damage, losing jobs, trade, and investment with China, and access to better technology like 5G. In this Cold War, the most threatening dimension of all is the US military buildup against China. The US has 400 military bases that surround China. US warships regularly enter the South China Sea, and there is a real risk that this situation could escalate into military crashes or even a hot war involving two nuclear-armed states. The US justifies this military activity by claiming that China is a threat. This is absurd. China has no chain of military bases surrounding the US. China does not send its warships to roam the Californian coast. So how does the US attempt to justify this aggression against China? Well, lots of people on the call will know that the first casualty in war is always the truth. The US is telling lies about China on the scale of the lie that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction in the run-up to the US war in Iraq in 2003. We need to stand up for the truth, and I think the truth will prevail. Everyone who stood up to the lies about Iraq or Vietnam in the run-up to those wars was proved correct. There is another very dangerous effect of this new Cold War we must address. The demonization of China is directly fueling a rapid increase in anti-Asian racism in the US, Britain, and elsewhere. Cold War warriors in the US government and Western mainstream media are responsible for this. And we have seen Chinese diaspora and other Asian communities stand up to this hatred, and no Cold War campaign must stand firmly in solidarity with them and join forces in opposing this racism. For Britain to be joining in with this Cold War is a massive distraction from our real problems. As we speak, Britain is sending its largest ever aircraft carrier loaded with US fighter jets to the South China Sea. This is aggressive and a huge waste of resources. And it comes at a time when we should be focused on the real threats we face, defeating the pandemic, stopping climate catastrophe. The new Cold War is an obstacle to us addressing these vital issues. Today's launch of the No Cold War Britain campaign is part of an international movement that is beginning to emerge. We launched the No Cold War International campaign in July 2020. This first event of No Cold War received enormous publicity, including in China, with the report of the event receiving 100 million, yes, that's 100 million hits in the Chinese media. Last month, we organized an event in Brazil opposing the Cold War, which featured Brazil's former president, Dilma Rousseff. Progressive forces in Latin America want to pursue win-win relations with China. That's because China offers things like vaccines, trade, investment, and respect for sovereignty. And this is a welcome alternative to the US approach of dominating Latin America, including through coups and brutal sanctions. We need to be prepared for a long campaign. This is going to be a very long struggle. And No Cold War's approach is to build the broadest possible campaign. We welcome and work with people who have different views on China to oppose the Cold War. For example, figures like Jeffrey Sachs, a US academic and UN advisor, and others who strongly disagree with many of China's policies but oppose the Cold War. Neither do we need to have everyone who opposing imperialism. This is about opposing the Cold War. As a campaign, we do not take a position on China itself. We are against the Cold War. And we are for peace and global cooperation to solve the real problems, common problems facing humanity. Within this, discussion and dialogue is very important in building opposition to the Cold War. And this has to include dialogue with China. It's very important we hear voices from a country of 1.4 billion people who are under attack from the US. I'm very much looking forward to hearing the different perspectives of all the excellent speakers we have tonight. I just want to extend my thanks for joining us. We really appreciate everyone who's joined the call tonight. In building this campaign, there will be very different views and analysis that everyone brings to the table, but we can unite around a simple and vital message. No Cold War, China is not our enemy.